All right, guys. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Inner Circle call. Like I said, we have a very special guest, Samir, who's the managing director at Nexus Ventures. He's an illustrious, very illustrious background, and he's back. Obviously one of the most potent or really big, fast-growing companies, unicorns, decacorns, however you want to name it. So we'll get to that after our customary inner circle values. As you know, every week I show up, drilling in the value system so that we are not lost. For those of you who have just joined in, and I also welcome the new members of the community who have joined. So without further ado, I'm going to go through our regular drill, which is bringing the inner circle weekly values. All right. So what is Pixeltests vision? I think everybody knows that, but I'll be slightly redundant here. Problem: current education and upskilling techniques are broken, and this is our small endeavor to sort of fix that. Mission: to build the world's largest society of AI engineers, blockchain engineers, etc. And really, hopefully, empower everybody to live a fulfilling and lucrative career. We've all seen what happens if it's the opposite. You can have fulfilling but not lucrative careers. You can have not fulfilling and lucrative careers. We've seen the effect of bad bosses. So that's the mission, and need all your help and support towards that. Right, guys? So if you guys resonate with that, type with you, WU in the chat box, guys. Come on. So we have Ajit, good to see you. I know you just joined yesterday, Ankur. Kaustav, always a regular. Mohanraj, great to see you, sir. Prasad, Sagar, Shim, Swayamdeep, awesome to see you. I hope your brother also joins. Vivek, Vinod, and Vivek. Awesome. Code of honor is extremely important because I think we're growing very fast. So, before I lose myself or before, we have any kinks in the armor, we really need to make sure this is rock solid, right? Remote, so everybody's remote. That's a given. That's a truism. Growth, make sure, so there's a lot of tools that are going to be coming up in artificial intelligence, machine learning, so on and so forth, or blockchain, Web 3.0. The idea is, there's a blizzard of information outside, right? Just follow this sequence, follow the steps in the community, go through the path 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, blockchain has not yet started, but we're going to start it in a few weeks. And just follow the path, cut off from everything else. Clarity, often I found that techies are excellent coders, being very good introverts by definition, but you got to market, you got to communicate, you got to sell yourself. If you're not getting rejected 9 or 10 times, I think we are in the wrong track. So push yourself to discomfort zones, guys. Efficiency, I think, again, as cliched as it might sound, act fast, act decisively. We've been listening to Earl Nightingale, etc. Abundance, there's plenty of jobs out there. There's plenty of high-paying, great bosses out there. It's our search function. You got to search. You got to keep searching for that. Abundance, again, I just told about that. Charity. So you'll all be very proud to know that I've shared this in the last call, but I'll share it again. We have collectively given together over, we just started. This is the documented one. We just started. So we've given over 37,000. We've given 37,000. So everybody type PTY, more power to you. Even if you're given 50 rupees, 10 rupees, it's okay. The only way you can get is by giving back, right? So, and we're going to make it a basic instinct. We're going to make it a basic instinct, make it a default, sort of like brushing, right? We've got to make hard things so basic. I would request, earlier it was only going to be 10% of money, but make sure it's 5% time and 5% money. As you guys know that I do something for, like a ophthalmology center here. So each to their own. I've also given like exact list of, how do you want to go about it. So looking forward to seeing some data science finishers. Your first 60 days path is the mindset, right? The most important thing is the mindset. Your goal card, please finish that assignment and submit that and send me the snapshot of the goal card, right? Extremely important to know where you're going, otherwise you'll just get lost. I've also given in a couple of the calls exactly how to set your goal cards, guys. Earl Nightingale. So this is the only thing you have to listen to, just one single piece of motivation, nothing else, guys. I'm putting it on the chat once again. For those of you who are new, fix the mindset, everything else will take care of itself, nothing else, right? Information will relentlessly be there, right? So I think the first step to be a finisher is once you finish this, the Python programming, EDA, make features, join and reshape data. That's precisely what's being asked in the industry, no more, no less. And only then you kind of let me know, right? And then you'll be coming into the inner circles call and just sharing your experience. What are the trials? What are the tribulations? And how did you get to be a finisher independently, right? Same thing for statistics, right? But data science finisher is when you finish these. That's it, right? I think we have a few members who just finished that. Machine learning finisher, I'll get to it when you're getting there. Once you do attain your goal, and the goal could be different, there are different members at different wavelengths here. Some are students, some are freshers. These are very, very low-end targets that I have kept, but feel free to be more ambitious. You have to, like, small aim is a big crime. Easily right now, blockchain or AI, people are earning at least 10 times, 20 times. You play your cards correct, right? But if you attain your goal, reach out to me, and then the Hall of Fame, we can start scheduling that. Same thing for working professionals. Less than 10 lakh, you should aim for 50 to 100% hikes. Once you write your goal card and you're going through that, then you let me know, right? What are our traits? Again, as generic as it might sound, you got to drill it down every day, every week. Self-reliant, yeah, be independent, guys. When you're stuck, try to get unstuck as much as possible by yourself. It's different, it's difficult, but that's the only way to do it, right? Tomorrow, quantum computing might come, etc., but you got to learn on your own, etc. And we have seen some tremendous results. Be ruthless about your goal. Very, very, very important. First, you have to fix the goal, then we, talked about it. Responsibility. So I'm going to go brisk through these. We are here exactly because what happened to us, right? No more blaming climate change or parents or childhood or all that. We are exactly where we are because of the choices we made. The faster you get to that hard truth, the more realistic you get. Fast implementer, we've spoken about this above. Persistent, like I said, be a cockroach. No need to be a hero chasing people. Just be a roach, put your head down and continue to grind your way, right? The goal in this community is for you to have a fulfilling, lucrative career, period, nothing else. Essentialist, again, as basic as it might sound, it's difficult. When you start earning a little, you start being a little more flamboyant, etc. That doesn't work. Just keep things very, very simple. I think creative, many of us are extremely creative. So I won't go too deep this week on that. Extremely important to be humble. Right now, I know more people will be humble because the targets have not been met. But once it's difficult to be humble when you're a little bit on top. Giver, I think we are enforcing that. Spiritual, as you know, go back to the inner circle calls where I talked about Vipassana. Okay, last week we started measuring the metric points. This time I've come with the weights. So I'll be sending you the link next week, not this week. So you'll know exactly where you stand. And then everything is also systematic. So first is the mindset, then is the body, and then is the programming, right? So you see somewhere below is programming. Twice a day, all nightingale. The first thing to sleep, first thing to wake up should not be Instagram, should not be stalking your exes, but it should be like basically just all nightingale, nothing else. Nothing else. It's 31 minutes, 26 seconds. Just cram it, mug it, repeat it, right? Goal book. So that's my goal book. It's another one every time. Write it with pen, paper, no typing, no this thing, no missing a day. Just be dogged about it. All those old SBI books that are for free calendar years, just get them, finish them. I have just one goal card in terms of your career, right? Unsubscribe. So enroll me. Last time people had told me it's not working in India, but you can enroll even manually. I mean, that is just a tool, guys. I'll just write it here. Okay. Screen usage time. I'm not going to be doing it now, but from maybe June, etc., we're going to be measuring that. Not for the basic data science community, but from machine learning or maybe deep learning, we're going to be measuring that. 2 hours of programming. That's pretty much it. Recommended. No more. And as always, we know the family time, sleep, food, and exercise. Cool. Any questions on this? So we're going to skip charity. We're going to do it next week. Any questions on this? If you're clear, type CLR and we'll go to the next piece on the agenda. Guys, let's hit it. Awesome, Mohanraj. Okay, cool. I got one clear, man. Come on. Okay, excellent. There you go. Cool. So let's now. Yep. Yeah, good to see you, Ajit. I know you just joined yesterday. Cool. So, Ajit, this is slight variant. So typically, Inner Circle calls us. So we have a guest speaker right now, right? So you just follow along. Awesome. So without further ado, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and move to the next agenda, which is, I'm going to request Sameer to come on. I'll give a small, short introduction about himself, and then we'll get straight into the, his background, questions, etc. So for those of you who don't know, Sameer is the managing director at Nexus Venture Partners. It's arguably, one of the marquee investors in India and San Francisco or globally, and they've backed, extremely terrific founders. Some companies include, which you might have heard as, such as Paytm, Unacademy, Zomato, I think, and these are some of the ones that ring a bell, I'm sure, to you. And they have a very lean team. And I've been seeing some of his podcasts. One of my common friends introduced me to Sameer. So he's at the helm, and I've requested him to talk a little bit about Edtech, because that's also my passion a little bit, etc. And then, we can keep the floor open for other kind of questions you guys might have or Sameer wants to talk about. So over to you, Sameer.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much for having me over. My video is off, and I hope that's okay. Or if you want, you can, it says that the host has disabled it if you want it on.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. I didn't know that. My bad. I'll just give you the co-host access.
Sure.
I've just given that to you.
Okay, now it should work. Hi, everyone. Morning. Thank you so much for having me over. It's great to be here, and thank you for the kind words. We are all what we are because of our entrepreneurs, and we're very grateful for them to have partnered with us. So so they deserve all the credit. So they make us look good. That's what it is.
Excellent. That's a good modest kind of opening.
It is the truth.
Good. Excellent. So one of the things that I am kind of fascinated about was your background. So if I can request you to talk about your background. So my understanding seems like, Sameer, you came from more of an operational, working professional, worked your ranks through, etc. And then you had a switch to venture capital. So can you talk a little bit about, for the benefit of the audience, your journey and, why did you make those steps? What was, mindset like, etc.?
Sure thing. Happy to do that. I finished up engineering in 2003, undergrad, and was very fascinated with, and I did my computer engineering at that time. I was very fascinated with computer networks, and that's what I kind of spent time, doing my internships around, right from product marketing and to doing stuff around systems engineering, to doing tests around testing engineering, all different facets and around computer networks. So I spent time doing that, when I was in college. So I wanted to do something in computer networks. So I joined a startup which was kind of partly funded by Motorola back in the day. This was in Chicago. So I worked with them initially as a network architect, and they were building the first variant of what then became WiMAX. So they were building a new age metropolitan network, completely wireless. And I was joined them to be their network architect in that company, kind of helping designing and helping on the rollouts of those wireless networks. So I did that, and one of the things that I realized very soon after that was that I liked business and I liked technology as well, and I didn't want to do a job which was only only focused on doing stuff in tech. I wanted a interface with business, right? I think, and that's when I kind of I interned with another company, and they reached out and said that we've just acquired a company in the US on the West Coast, and we worked with you. So they gave me a pre-placement offer. I hadn't taken it, and they said that this is a good opportunity, and this is a very novel technology called triple play with the whole IPTV solution. And this was 2004 time frame, and I was very, very cutting edge by that time. This was basically going to complete the voice, video, and internet and data bundle completely. So I kind of took that on, moved to the West Coast, and I was doing stuff in doing an operational role. I started off as a sales engineer in this role, had a business interface and technology, and did that for 2 years, and then came back with that company to India to lead the product for this market. And I was a product manager for the South Asia market. So as I said, I was very fascinated with what computer networks and telecom networks and all that could do. And things were just getting started in India at that time. I moved from there to join Ericsson, and I was again focused more on wireless networks again, and the whole how multimedia would be driven on wireless networks. So I did that for about a year. One of the things I realized from that was like I'm not a big company guy, and that gave me a lot of time. When you're working in a big company, you get a lot of time actually. It's great for your CV and all that stuff, but you get a lot of time in some ways. And I was doing well in Ericsson, and I was doing I had got good ratings and all of that stuff, but I felt very dissatisfied because it was just too big an enterprise to work in. And I came from a more startup environment. I liked the stuff around that. And so when I got that time, I actually started thinking more deeply around what I wanted to do with my life, whether I wanted to do an MBA, all of that kind of stuff. This was 2005 time frame. And then I signed up to say that, okay, what can I do sitting at home and working after work? What can I do and learn? And that's when I came across the CFA program, and I started studying for that. And that was my first interface into finance when I was being a techie. And then as I was researching things, even for Ericsson, I used to come across these companies that Ericsson was going to partner with and all do stuff with, and they were all funded by VCs. And one of the questions was, are they stable? Are they well capitalized? That was a question I heard in meetings. And then I started looking up what these companies were all about, and whether they were capitalized, whether they raised money recently, all of that stuff. And that's how I started landing up on a lot of VC sites and started seeing videos and stuff like that of what VCs do. And that kind of caught my attention. This was in 2006, and I 3.5 years after being in operational roles, I really decided that this is the best thing that I think I can do, because you get to spend time in technology, you get to spend time in sort of finance, and you get to spend time in terms of working with startups and entrepreneurs and help build their companies. So that's the genesis of how I decided to do whatever it takes to get into venture. And my first job was I got lucky, I would say. I joined from being a solutions architect. And after only done one level of my CFA, I somehow managed to crack a venture job at that point of time, pre-MBA, with Reliance Capital. They were just starting out a venture fund, and they wanted somebody who understood tech very deeply, and knew a little bit about finance. That kind of was me. And then I got lucky, got selected into that role. This was in 2007. Started out early stage investing in 2007, and now I've been investing in companies the last now. On the 8th of Jan, it was now 15 years of investing into companies in India and US and other parts of the world. So yeah, that's how I got into it, and that's how venture worked out for me. And I find it very exciting because every day is different, and it's a pretty exciting thing to do, I would say.
Wow! Congrats on your 15 years. That's actually a great milestone. And also, it seems like the 2005-ish, when you just finished. You said 1 year of a couple of years, I guess, at all the telecom space, deeply entrenched in tech, and getting that shift in clarity very deeply and sticking to it for 15 years is like incredible. Because I mean, a lot of people, like maybe myself included, didn't figure out a lot of stuff. Had to go through one mistake to another mistake, and then now in rumination or hindsight learning, you can say it's having the good fortune of making mistakes. But you stuck at it and you've really risen through the ranks. That's awesome. So first off, kudos to that. And
Well, I guess, there are two or three things around that. Specifically, I would say that, one is that there's a saying, right, that the best thing to do is build for the future, and the second best thing is to fund that, right? So I'm doing the second best thing. I do believe that entrepreneurship is the best calling, but I do believe also that I have a personality defect of wanting to do multiple things at the same time. And I don't think you can do that in entrepreneurship. So the slotting is very clear in my life about why venture and being a VC is important, and why I like doing it, because I like doing multiple things, and that's reflective in my investing in sectors and spaces and things like that. So I can't be just doing one company, and I'm not smart enough as Elon Musk to do 3 companies or 5 companies or 10 companies. So I make do by being a VC.
I'm sure even Elon Musk says that if I put you both in a room, like I'm not smart enough. There are a lot of people smarter. It's a case in point. Like the rest of the entrepreneurs, you back on yourself. So awesome. And then so talk us about. I'm particularly curious about your mindset with Thesis. Meaning, as you started out, seems like lower down the ranks in Reliance Capital. You said you only done one CFA, but that means you've really gone through the basics, the grind, the books, accounting, all those other pieces. And then, till now making bets. How did your own thesis change in the last 15 years? If you, again, go back in hindsight, was it phase 1, phase 2, so on and so forth?
I think there's a lot of reinforcement learning that happens in venture when you do stupid things away from the very fundamentals. And, so I've suffered through those more than a lot of people have. So I think the basic core tenets around phenomenal people, great market, and phenomenal timing, and ability to execute and be agile. I think the combination of that is what leads to winning companies. I think so. I think any deviance from any of those in any of those parameters has always led to failure, and that's what has got reinforced. So the thesis has always been that from day one. That's what I learned about. I would get 3 out of 5 of these things right or wrong, or 2 out of them wrong, right in many cases when I was just starting out my career in venture. But now the idea is to try and get all of them right, and do things. And the biggest learning is that these are timeless, and these are applied to any and every sector. And these are about characteristics and funding those characteristics and funding those the basics. So deviance from the basics and compromise on any of those things will lead to failure potentially, as the market scenario changes and the entropy in the space is very high. It could lead to failure. So I think that's what it is. I don't think the thesis has changed or whatever, because I'm a very, very broad-based investor in many sectors. So I just try and look at these basics and just try and stick to those, right? I think that's the most timeless way of doing venture, if you ask me, venture investing.
Awesome. So for those of you who are watching this at YouTube or wherever, so I honestly got only 4 of them, but let me repeat that and maybe he could chime in with the 5th. So that's phenomenal people, great market, agility, timing, and did I miss one more?
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, it goes towards being agile and being able to take feedback from the market and being intellectually honest and keep evolving yourself, right? I mean, that's the thing. Has the person shown those trends earlier? Has the person been very firm? Has the person got lucky? Does the person have the mental agility to kind of adjust to realities which keep coming up, right? I mean, nobody could have predicted a pandemic, but how do you live through it, or how do you thrive through it, right? So there'll be multiple things thrown at you. So how do you survive through chaos, right? You need a sort of a mental mindset to do that. And
Awesome. Yeah, so there you go with all these core tenet values that Sameer's looking at, or at least that's his framework. Awesome. So in terms of going back, and I'll just sort of go back and forth the main topic, which is Edtech. So I mean, I'll be trying to be kind of candid. What's going on with with education technology in India, or just education in general? What is your thesis, and what's going wrong with it? And and what do we do? Like, what would you do if you were an entrepreneur right now in trying to, I don't know if fixing is the right word. I don't even know if I'm asking the right articulate question. So basically these two questions: what's your thesis on education in India or globally, and B, what's right or wrong about it?
I think education and healthcare are two large spends in India, very large profit pools, and will continue to be very large profit pools. They're the great equalizers. At least education definitely is a very great equalizer as an enabler as a sector, right? So I think so very broadly bullish around what is possible around that. But I think there's also each person is different and each individual is different right now, and everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. I do feel that a basic level of education in K-12 can be standardized, but I do also feel that K-12 education needs to be supplemented to find excellent vectors of excellence in many ways in people a lot better, and then systematically improve them to give them the ability to kind of learn in a self-paced environment and give the motivation levels for them to think outside of the box. I am a firm believer also in the fact that the traditional education system is broken, right? And if my kids don't want to go to college or school, I will not blame them. But if they do something valid with, and do something good about their time and start a company or do any of those things, I wouldn't mind that, right? I would, if you told me this 10 years back, I would be like petrified. But today I'm not, right? Because I do feel that the traditional system is broken. It's not really teaching people the same thing. It's just a lowest common denominator of randomness and not really preparing you for too much of what the real evolving world is going to be like, right? Where there is, or invoking the kind of passion in a systematic way around what people are really good at and helping them develop that, right? So it's a very industrial era of education that is being meted out. And in fact, some of the newer education platforms are just digitizing that and disseminating it. So I do believe that education is broken and needs to be really thought through in a first principles way. I do feel that the societal acceptance around that will change in due course. And I think it is starting to. It will become even more prominent when people drop out and from college more and more, or don't go to college and still create large companies in a very democratized global technology-driven companies globally. I think it's going to happen. You're seeing early glimmers of it. It's just going to happen in a very, very significant way. So the thesis is, of course, when you are trying to do things, you're trying to centralize and create profit pools or structure profit pools. But something that creates and structures a profit pool in the new reality of the world, or the emerging new world order, where it doesn't matter where you went, what caste, what creed, what sex, what any of that. It doesn't matter. The only thing matters is objectivity and whether you have the skill set to do it, and you have the capability to do it, and you have the ability to work with others to kind of build and do things. And I think that is starting to happen. If you look at the whole Web3 culture and dominance, and the more and more that you see it, it's like becoming more religion around how people can collaborate and do things. And I do think that the future will be of having the right set of incentive mechanics and the right checks and balances driven through platforms so that people do things. But I do think that there will be self-organizing ways in which people will get together and work on things, and if they do their jobs well, they'll make enough amount of money. So people will start seeing in 10 years, 15 years, for it to be acceptable for people not to go through the same grind that everybody else went through, or prepare for JEE or do things that they don't want to do. If they're really good at coding, they'll just be phenomenal at it. And if they're really good at this, science or photography or whatever, there'll be just vectors of excellence which should be discovered and channelized. And then learning is so global and open now that it could be structured in platforms to give it to them. And then also the earning capabilities via these platforms will be embedded in some ways, so that people will find that whatever passions they're following, that they could get paid for it, and it will create a sort of a different sort of a movement in the next few years. I do fundamentally believe in it. Right? So to the extent that I'm okay if my kids want to drop out after 12th, but do something very serious and phenomenal with their lives. I do believe that 12th education is basics are important around grade and social interactions and all of that stuff is very, very important. But self-organizing, phenomenal, passionate people are going to drive substantial value going forward.
Wow, that's pretty profound. Yeah, the vectors of excellence was a very interesting sort of idea. I'm seeing even within our community, or adjacent communities, people are like, I mean, some of the best developers I've seen are like from from rural areas, like Orissa, etc. And these guys just like spit code and no education, etc. So my thesis is also getting flipped there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm actually of the belief. That I know it's very contrarian, but I'm actually of the belief that there is going to be a phenomena, and I'm already starting to see it, where there will be an anti-IIT, anti-whatever entitlements, and people are going to be looked down upon.
That's true.
It's going to happen. It's not there now, but the society is going to move towards that thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have a mild story with your permission. So the first time when I came back from the US in 2015, I was so consumed by these degrees. I mean, because you're almost living in that, you're fueling that imposter syndrome yourself, having gone to all these IITs, etc. My hiring strategy was only if the person was an IIT. So the first guy came in, brilliant mind, stuck for 3 months, took salary and left, and I cried. Did I learn my lesson? No. Second time, I hired another guy, 7 months, had biryani with him every day. He left taking the salary. After that, now I have like a small script saying that the guy should, if he's an IIT or whatever it is, first off, that's not happening, but you must either be married or have 2 kids and degrees, then come in. Because there's so much of unlearning, because 19-year-olds are being splashed with on railway stations and newspapers saying ranks, etc. And I'm from Hyderabad, so I see this a lot more pervasive here, and I wish it happens faster and faster. But the rate of velocity is because I'm both a participant and a critic. I see my uncles and all spending lakhs, sending them to JEE coaching, etc. Anyways, so
no disrespect from that standpoint. It's a great thing. IITs are great. All of that stuff is good, but I think the world is going to change where the best education is going to be disseminated and be open.
Yeah.
The very passionate people will be able to find it very well, and their passion is going to drive it through, and their drive is going to make sure that they can learn anything that they want, learn very fast. Their minds will be a lot more agile as a result, and they'll have less sense of entitlement, and they will have more to prove, and they'll be able to work hard because they would have done that in an unstructured way in many ways, and they'll be able to structure chaos, right, very, very fast, and learn things on their own. And those are life skills which will be extremely important going forward. Not that, okay, I went to IIT and I did this, and I just scored well, and people are just in a rat race to, I did consulting, now I should do banking, and then I should do venture or whatever. The whole careers in the future are going to be rethought of very, very differently. I think people will also have a lot more time. It's going to be competitive, but people will adjust to new realities and adjust to finding their passion areas. And I think I think the world in the future is going to be very, very interesting 10, 15 years out. It's very different from what it is going to be now. And people who don't change are going to find themselves very, very left out.
Got it. Yeah. No, absolutely makes sense. It's great to see somebody such a visible proponent of contrarian theories and holding those dichotomies really well. In fact, in our community, we have a module where I push the remote culture very fast, because in these AI, blockchain, etc., I've realized Naukri and Indeed, etc., are not the best hunting grounds, but actually the angel list, the LinkedIn, and because there's a huge supply demand gap, employers across the world are willing to pay whatever it takes for reasonable talent
Yeah, I think, and COVID is, we underestimate this thing. All big financing news and funding news that are happening is only because the world has got a catalyst now towards digitization and new platforms, and wealth and value creation is moving to some of these platforms and moving to these places, right? So I think COVID has really shown the way, right? I mean, if you're a great engineer from blockchain and you can do stuff and you can prove it, world's your oyster. You can make $1,000 an hour.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. So now let's switch back to the market, because I'm kind of intrigued there. So how do you go about figuring out a market? A, and B is, what are entrepreneurs coming to you getting is wrong about the market? Smart entrepreneurs who think like they figured it out, etc., but they're getting something fundamentally wrong in the market. So these are two sort of interlocked questions.
So, I do believe the way to think about this answer is, when you talk about a market, some things exist, some things don't, right? Like, I mean, okay, Friendster and Facebook didn't exist, but was there a need for people to be in touch with each other? Like when somebody comes up with a social network in some ways, you don't know whether that really existed, or that it's very difficult to predict the market. So the best companies make the market. Some of the other companies change the structure in the market, right? But more and more, what is happening if you look at the world around you, is that the substantial value creation is happening in platforms, right? And there are platform companies which are getting created, which are taking on traditional spaces, and by providing access and removing the middlemen in many ways, they are changing the industry structure in a way by which they are expanding the market. Let me give an example, right? If you look at Airbnb, how many of those people used to go and stay in other people's houses, and that market existed, right? Now you can say everything is in the market, or nothing is, that market doesn't exist, right? It's about perspective. But here comes a great entrepreneur who says that there's a spare room or a spare couch or a spare property which you have, and you have with you, and you want to make some money off it, and here's a platform which can kind of connect you with somebody. We are of course a middleman, but we'll take a certain amount of things, but we'll connect both of you. So suddenly it becomes a sort of a platform which is doing that, and that's what is happening more and more and more in space after space after space, right? I mean, if you look at it, platforms are changing the world around us in substantial ways. Whether you look at an Uber, whether you look at a Facebook, whether you look at any of these things, they are really helping connect and do things. So it's very difficult in many situations to say that, will this company, is there a market for this, right? So like, for example, I give you an example of something that I funded. I don't know how well they do or they not do, early days, but my thesis was like, I got this question a lot. Like, I invested into a company which is taking physical security. It's a company called 56 Secure. So there are security guards in India. They're mapped 1-to-1. They guard a particular house. They're not doing it for tens of houses or 20 or 30 houses. There's no platform or technology to do that. And the public safety system is not great in the country, right? Now, when you look at the market today of that company, it says what do you call as a proxy? You don't know what the end market demand is, right? But you do know that the existing market of security guards is XYZ, right? Whatever that it is, whatever, 8, 10, 15, $20 billion, $15 billion market is there, structured, unstructured, whatever you want to call it, $20 billion market. But the thing is that market is the market that you want to kind of drive and bring up by making sure that you have a shared resource of a guard in a hyperlocal cluster, which is driven by technology and connected with it, right? So suddenly what you have is potentially the same market which had 5 or 10% of the market had security guards, suddenly expands to, now we are seeing trends of 25 to 30% of the households are subscribing to security, because the costs of accessing that security guard has become cheaper. And thereby the market has expanded theoretically in that neighborhood, right? So we've done this in microcosm neighborhoods and are scaling that. And so theoretically, very difficult to predict the market, but this is a market expanding thing. And that's what the philosophy. So yeah, my point is you have to look at things in a very first principles way with stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. That's a very interesting example. I haven't heard about this company, but seems like a very also Indian problem to solve. So that's kudos to them that they've taken the bet, and you've backed that bet, and it's great to know that they're doing well.
I can't say it's out of the woods by a far shot. I think we have our work cut out, but yeah, I'm just trying to give you an example around very difficult to predict what the market will be of something, right? Or whether ShareChat comes along and you don't know what the market of that is, right? When something comes about, you didn't know what the market of half the companies is going to be like. It is. There are some platforms which just take away markets, and because they provide access, like Unacademy, for example, right? There are companies which took 25 years to get to the same level of them by building coaching centers. The world changed. You could take the same coaching center and put it on a cloud, right? And suddenly then the access got taken away. So the best educators could be brought on because you had platform, and then you had students from all over India who had to go to a coaching center can now sit in their homes and prepare for their exams theoretically sitting through this. So in that case, it's a value migration play in some ways where the thing from coaching centers has moved to an online platform, and the market has expanded because there are a lot of people who didn't want to go to other things and they were just preparing on their own. And theoretically, that market is that those set of people are also coming onto the platform.
Yeah.
Right. So accessibility with digitization is going to be improving. And COVID, if you look at it, is forcing nobody to go to a coaching center. And none of the coaching centers were well prepared, because if I was a coaching center, I didn't have the time or resources or as a single coaching center, however good I was, other than Zoom, I didn't have anything else to be digitized, right? So here came across a sort of a company which had everything structured and could go from one to many very fast and get the best educators. So you could access the very best education in a physics person all over the country at the same time. So platforms will change the dynamics across things more than we anticipate. Even in Web3, it will change. Those might be decentralized and I also do feel there will be centralization in terms of value capture in some of those things. They're right now going through a different mode. But yeah, I think theoretically everybody, a lot of the world is going to change in this direction.
Awesome. So coming back to the second part of the question on the market. So what are smart or astute entrepreneurs, or maybe freshman entrepreneurs, guys doing it the first time, what are the mistakes they make in terms of the market? And then, you also have some other set of founders, perhaps in the same market, but they get it right. Like, what did you see as some common denominator there?
I think, as I said, some markets are very difficult to predict. So when you're creating a new category or things like that, then you have to really understand whether the pain point is very real, so that your customers are going to migrate out of what they have into what you're building. So in that situation, what the framework as investors we look at is, what is the switching cost of the thing that they are already stuck in? Is the switching cost potentially going to be very high for them to move into what they're building? So you look at that in some new categories and things like that. And the thing is, if they're building something in a new category in a redefined way, we look at the existing market and we look at the fact that if this solution comes about, will it expand the market or not? Great companies expand their markets every time, right? Without doubt. Every great company has expanded the market substantially by providing together a value proposition bundle, which is very unique and is very convenient and has phenomenal ability to recompose the profit pool and make it accessible to customers, right? So I think that is kind of very important. The other thing is, generally people make a mistake when they don't get the switching costs right, and just think that everything will be hunky dory and they'll build a great thing there. The other thing is just like getting market segments very wrong. Typically, VCs will invest into companies. All VCs, I would say, all larger VCs will invest, or venture capital firms will invest into people or teams which are addressing a large market, because potentially there has to be a large room to grow. If you win, then you should be able to get to a duopolistic market leadership or a duopolistic structure, and go from there, right? So, yeah. Going back to your same example, right? I mean, a more relatable example is food ordering wasn't there. Restaurants were not doing this. I mean, food ordering was there. It was like 5-10% of a restaurant's business. Now, if you look at it, it's a major part of lots of businesses, and there's a whole category of companies to be created in cloud kitchens and the likes. So suddenly the market has expanded, and COVID is that massive accelerant in some ways that people can sit at their homes and just order food, and restaurants are now shutting down shop and going into smaller areas, into smaller decent dark kitchens and things like that. So a lot of that stuff is happening right now, right? That market didn't exist, but it is starting to move that way. Or even Zepto, which is a portfolio company of ours, has done something similar, right? So yeah.
Awesome. And what are some of the areas you are personally excited about? I know you've mentioned, or Nexus as a whole is excited about in terms of definitely. I know you back Edtech, etc. But are you looking a lot at crypto or / Web 3.0? Do you have thesis around that, or electric vehicle, etc.? What are some of the areas personally that would pique your interest fairly fast?
So personally, I mean, I have a very broad, eclectic interest base. As an investor, I don't look at myself as a sector-focused investor, but I look at myself as a generically investor. Obviously, there are certain things like life sciences which I don't understand, or biotech, very, very hardcore stuff. I just goes over my head. These days, even crypto is going over my head. I struggle to keep pace with what's going on in that space. But I think it'll stay. I think whenever the crypto winter comes out, the men from boys will be separated, and clearly in that state, things will become a lot more clearer. Right now, there's a lot of hype. But again, the sectors that we are really excited about are around. Clearly we see India being a great talent pool from a developer standpoint. India exports a lot of software from engineering services like TCS, Infosys, and all that stuff. We export nearly close to about $140 billion of software, more oil than Saudi. We are exporting just in terms of software every year. That's massive, right? So we have a massive talent pool, and I do feel that these engineers in due course in all these companies, in engineering services companies, in offshore development centers like Microsoft's and the Googles and the NetApps and all of these places and Veritas of the world are all going to step out and build their next product companies out of India. So I do feel that there's going to be a lot of global tech out of India for the world. So that's going to be a very interesting space. We've done a bunch of things in that space. Right from a Postman or a Hasura or Observe.ai or Dhruva or Triomix or Jovio, all examples of companies that we've kind of backed, which started here in India and have moved to the US. And we continue to do that, and that's going to be a large part of our sector and thesis at Nexus. So we do that. We're very excited about the whole consumer internet and new trust layers coming about in those spaces. Obviously, whether that's happening in education, whether it happens in healthcare, whether it happens in all those things, newer platforms are going to get created and reshape the industries. That's there. So we are excited about that. We're looking very closely at B2B and supply chain transformation. I've done a bunch of things in those spaces, whether it's infra market, whether it's Jumbo Tail, whether it's Venviz, whether it's Smart Staff. We're looking at different sectors, factors of production, supply chain. How will that be changed? Delivery is a portfolio company of ours. So that's going to be very, very important in due course as with nation building and better infrastructure. A lot of that will be changed. Also very bullish about what's potentially going to happen in the whole fintech space. Clearly massive. India is one of the largest payments markets, emerging payments markets in the world. It is the largest now. And we got here in 4 years, and I think there's just going to be there's massive headroom in that sense to grow into and create large companies in that space. So I think that's going to create, there are going to be some phenomenal companies and spaces and subspaces within that, not fintech, insurance and things like that, which will, and the whole bringing retail participation into the capital markets as a broad thesis that will be very interesting in the country in due course. So, I think it's just, we are in a very, very fortunate time. I think, we don't realize how lucky we are because we're one big nation. We have all got our problems, but we have stability in the country. I mean, we don't realize how lucky we are when you look at African nations and other parts of the world where there's chaos and there, conflict tone and all that stuff. We have stability. We have a young population. We have a lot going for ourselves. I think digitization, and we have the fund underlying plumbing on UPI payments, rails, Aadhaar, all of that stuff is just emerging so fast and is so world class in many ways. And we're going to see more innovation on health stack. We have the ability to kind of reshape so many sectors and spaces, and we have a very large market to cater it to. Of course, we have to achieve that at a price point which is going to be competitive, and India is going to be a competitive market. But capital is there, market is there, opportunities are there. I think just phenomenal opportunity for all of us to build some remarkable companies in the country. So
awesome. Yeah, that's actually extremely elegantly and eloquently sort of put in terms, and it seems like you're fundamentally very optimistic in terms of certain sectors, etc. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about I don't know if you have like the equivalent of like some of the other also marquee investors, maybe in many respects your partners as well on co-board seats. They have like Axel Atom and Sequoia Surge. Do you have like a thesis, or are you constructing one to sort of attract phenomenal entrepreneurs by your own admission at a slightly more early stage, or you're okay with current deal flow, etc. But
we could never be okay with the current deal flow. And I don't think if you ask me the question 20 years out, I don't think anybody should say that they can be satisfied with deal flow. Everybody wants more deal flow. More stuff you see, the better your eye gets trained, and the more relative benchmark you can do on investment opportunities and stuff like that. So we're very open to that. We're a small team. We haven't structured a sort of a program like an Axel Atoms or Sprout Surge and all those kind of things. We haven't done that yet. And because we continue to do what we do best, which is like invest into companies at foundational stages. Like 85% of our investments, we're very focused. You're not doing growth investments. You're not doing any other stuff. We invest from seed to early growth. What we define it, right, is $500,000 to $10 million in a particular round of investment. 85% of our investments are in pre-revenue, pre-product companies where there are two people who are maybe just leaving their job, have left their job, and are starting their companies. That's the stage at which we're coming in mostly, right? Wow. And we want to be the partner of choice for entrepreneurs who are looking for serious company building advice in some ways, a serious long-term oriented partner who's going to go through thick and thin and not chase vanity metrics, just the chase and lust for growth. So we want to be that partner for entrepreneurs and be the first port of call. So we feel very good because we've had that opportunity. Of course, we like everybody else should be. Most of us, I can speak for us. I can't talk about anybody else, but there's obviously room for improvement, and we need to do better. So
awesome. That's extremely seems like the blinders are on, and the blinders really well, and that's been like paid off big time. In terms of, this is just a follow-up question to that. I'm sure you've been seeing this. I think A16Z and I think to some extent Bloom has also been doing it in Bombay. This venture builder kind of idea, which I actually also sort of like because they help you at least. On paper, they say that, we'll help you with hiring, etc. Karthik, one interaction with him had told me that.
Oh, yeah. Phenomenal. Okay.
Yeah. So it seems like that's also picking up because many of the founders kind of also need that. Like many of my friends who are classmates, they're like struggling for like hiring roles or struggling with something else, maybe I don't know, attrition, etc. Do you do that formally, or it's that just baked?
So what we're doing is we're not taking a venture studio sort of model at all, right? We are saying that there are 12 of us, maybe there'll be 15 of us in due course, or 20 of us at best. We will not be A16G, not because there's A16G is bad, but we don't have the DNA of being like that, right? So everybody has to recognize, like an entrepreneur has to recognize what they are. It's also important for us to recognize what we are. I have immense amount of respect for A16Z and how they're building it. But our model is going to stay towards being and participating and partnering with maybe 15 to 20 companies every year, which are amazing and the best of breed. And if we can do that systematically or year on year, I think we would have done our job really, really well. I think that's our focus. We don't want to play a market share game of investing across stages and getting logos. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do because this is a hard business. I mean, give some gyan and put something together and um, uh, broadcast it out to a bunch of people who it might not apply to. I just feel that a lot of platforms also do this service by putting together so much gyan, which might not be relevant for their kind of companies and their kind of spaces.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs taking that as, enshrining that into their underlying foundations and ultimately, not doing well because what they have to be taught about is resiliency and agility and anti-fragility in the foundations, which got enshrined because somebody else had done something in some way and it worked there, but everything could be so different for you. So I don't believe in a broadcast way which is why you never see me give gyan on a stage or any of that stuff. I believe in Q&A because every answer is different and everything is tailored. And my fundamental belief is that funds and people do disservice by giving generic gyan. I don't think that they should do that. I think some of these programs indoctrine that, and that doesn't make sense. I do feel that there are some extremely great exceptions to this. In some ways, like a YC is a phenomenal place to go learn. It's also because of your peer set is phenomenal and coming from all over the world. So you'll be amongst that. And then they have that right, they've kind of productized it really nicely. So, if you have access to some of these kind of platforms, it can be very good for you. And it can really help you get the vectors of growth going for you. But otherwise, just generically just falling for it because somebody has done this and somebody was successful 6 years back writing a check. Nobody cares about any of that, right? Because you haven't done anything tomorrow. It's pretty much like what Taglioni says, and I respect that what he says. I haven't done anything tomorrow, and that's the truth, right? I mean, we don't know what tomorrow looks like in many ways. We all have a hypothesis around it, and we all have to plan together to what that could look like and prepare ourselves because it may look phenomenal or it may look really bad. And if it does, then what do we need to go back to and work on the board for, and regroup and make it look better? Because that's what it is.
No, 200%. I think that was extremely candid and with good reason, because I've also seen this malaise and kind of bigger pandemic of people, getting a high of just giving gyan, which is completely, they don't have the chops and they're still giving it. This is like a dentist.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of self-serving stuff which is happening in the ecosystem, and honestly, it's also because the ecosystem has gotten large, so it's also important to get recognized. So I understand that, but if you stick to the basics, keep doing it year on year, and you have a good reputation, you don't need to do all this stuff. I do believe that.
Yeah, maybe that's a discussion for another time. Awesome. Now, so we do have about 5 minutes. Sorry, just going a little over. Yeah, maybe we'll just take a few questions. Before that, I had one question in terms of just the last one, and feel free to redact if you have one or two good regrets in terms of bets. You're like, oh damn, that I missed that out, and that's gone like really big or something like that.
Lots of them, but I think two come to mind clearly. Clearly, I think the world of Girish and Freshworks, and I was talking to him. I just joined Nexus. This was about 10 years back, and we'd given him a term sheet, and he got a term sheet which was for a higher valuation. And unfortunately, I couldn't convince my colleagues to step up on the valuation and win it. And somehow we couldn't see through how special he was. I think, clearly, I think that one was a miss for us. The other one, I completely blame myself, at least the one that I've seen. I don't know how the economics in the business will work, but I've been surprised from outside in is a company called Misho. Like I met with the entrepreneur, but I this is at seed stage or Series A stage, and I couldn't see any sparks. So I think it's my fault, I would say, definitely, because I couldn't read it. And, I do think I have a trained eye to some extent, but I couldn't read any signs for it. In some cases I do read signs, and I have conflicting things in my mind. In that case, it wasn't the case, and the entrepreneur has surprised us so well, and I'm very, very happy for him to have built a great company. Still many questions, but I do think that I was in that meeting and I just couldn't get it, so it's my fault. That's the way I look at it.
Wow, that's being extremely brutal on yourself, but that's amazing. I mean, with that kind of refreshing honesty, but I'm sure, like you're not going to be missing out on those spidey senses henceforth, or maybe that's part of the game too. Like
yeah, the part of the game is that you'll always find something really spiky in any person you meet. So
yeah, got it. Perfect, awesome. Thank you so much for again, being on record and I think a lot of us need to learn honesty as well at scale. When you're, that's one of the tenets I keep pushing more to myself and to the whole community, but just being honest. Okay, with that said, so I'm going to be taking 2 or 3 questions. I know, guys, you've mentioned your questions, but I'm going to be just unmuting, one or few. We have time. We have about 2-3 minutes, so a few questions that. Let me just, or maybe, guys, in the interest of time, you can just type out your question on the chat and you can just read it on the chat. I think me and Samir both have access to the chat right now on Zoom. Let's take about 30 seconds and you guys can fill in the chat with your questions.
we have one question: how to value an idea and evaluation. Should we take that on, or should we wait for more questions? Or?
Let's just give about
Sure.
20 seconds, and then hopefully we should get 4 or 5 questions. And
Yeah.
I do want to know your hard stop.
No, that's fine. We have 10-15 minutes.
Okay. Okay, cool. I think these are 2 questions. So we have 2 questions. Okay, we have 3 questions now. Now they're coming. I guess.
Why don't you pick whatever you think?
Okay, sure. So let's take Swayamdeep Singh's question, which is, how do you find the right incentive and right checks and balance for phenomenal people? Do you want to take a shot at that?
Well, how do you find the right incentive, right? I think, when people come to us, they're think about it, right? We are sitting we're probably always running after entrepreneurs. That's the truth. But, that's the truth. Our job is saying 90%, 99% no, and begging for 1% of the time. We're trying to beg entrepreneurs to let us be in the part of their journey. That's our job. That's our job description. So it's important for you to know that. How much ever VCs are glorified, that's not the case, right? So, just think about what we do, right? We are running after entrepreneurs who are incented and are building a company. Now, there are many ways by why are people building that company? Now, when you're sitting across the table with an entrepreneur on the other side who's talking about the idea, you can judge whether the person is motivated for the right reasons or is starting a company around what is it. That he or she is going through their crossroads in life in many ways. At that point of time, around how they want to define themselves in the future. And the enterprise or the startup that they're building is clearly a manifestation of that in some ways, right? Now, is that manifestation the truth, or is the manifestation of that thing something to appear to be cool? I think that with a trained eye, with learnings in the space, you can get to figure out. But clearly, anybody who's starting up is incentivized to kind of do well and do things right. Now there could be multiple motivations, being their legacy, their obviously money is a byproduct. Money is a byproduct for many cases, because if you're not going to build solid enterprise value, you're not going to be able to attract the right sort of people on your journey, and you're not going to be able to create wealth creation for all your stakeholders. And creating wealth is important because it's the best reinforcing loop, gives you more power to do what you're doing and do it better. So I think the important part is to be able to sit across these entrepreneurs and understand what is incentivizing them. Is it because, most of the times if we see trends or ways in which people just want to do a startup because they want to do a startup because, that everybody's doing a startup or everybody's trying to do it. The originality of the idea is something that at least I pay a lot of weightage on. As to why do you want to do this? It's not because there are 10 companies in the world which are trying to do this. So mostly, if you look at it, I would try and not fund companies which are not original. I would try and I've been looking at mostly stuff which is which is original, and where the founder has arrived at a thesis or arrived at wanting to solve that problem in a very, very original manner, in a first principles manner. And that, with your questioning, you can figure out whether that's the case or not, right? And so it's that there is I wouldn't say that there's a science to it, because if there's a science to it, a Q&A could make that happen, and with AI could get rid of VCs. In many ways, I don't think that's the way. There is a dark art and a black art in doing that, to be able to understand and read between the lines. In many ways, to be able to say that what is that entrepreneur rightly incentivized with? Is the incentivization framework there? What does he really look for? How important is money to the person? Is it just money? How is it a get-rich-quick scheme, which is what I see with a lot of the Web3 entrepreneurs today? It just puts me off, because they're not wanting to build enduring value. They just want to get to tokens and tell everybody and spend that thing and buy Beamers and all of that stuff, and not really care about anything else. But is there a real opportunity for them to build enduring value? And what is it? What is the motivation framework? I think once you talk to them, once you judge that black art potentially not, and we are all trying to get better at it every day, lets you kind of arrive at that answer around what the incentives are. And the checks and balances are clearly, I don't think we are school monitors trying to get a class in order. We're trying to invest into mature people who are going to show us the way, right? In many ways, we are partners with them in the journey, and wanting to back them and wanting to back their idea, and then really focus on helping them build. So I personally am of the opinion that I would like working with entrepreneurs who are very transparent, very open, are collaborative in many ways. They don't think of us as people who are judging them, but people who are in them and are concerned about making them successful, with whatever limited bit of contribution that we can have at the right points, and jointly arriving at decisions, and just taking of us as a very valuable stakeholder. So I think those are the checks and balances. But if I have to look at legal agreements and run a company, then I failed in my duty of selecting the entrepreneur. I failed in my duty of managing the company. I failed in my duty of having the ability to build trust with the entrepreneur for him to open up with me.
Awesome. That was super straight and also extremely clear answer. So I want to take one more question here. So Mohanraj, so his question is, hey Sameet, hello Sameet. First off, great to see and hear a person so accomplished and down to earth. To me, I perceive you as a professional, heads down kind of person, valuing on space. How do you mitigate the risks of being part of a small team to ensure continuity?
And as the question is from a Nexus standpoint, if I might ask, if you just say yes.
Mohan, do you want to? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think and There are two schools of thought around how venture should be run. Venture has typically been a very craftsman-oriented business where there are a bunch of people who get together and are aligned on values and what they want to do with the entrepreneurial ecosystem and things like that. And then there is this whole newer wave of kind of funds which are taking a very different approach of saying that okay, we will build multiple functions and things like that. And we're just going to be very large and do all kinds of things. There are two different schools of thought. So when you, as a partnership, think about it, it's very important to say that do I need to be everything for everyone? No. That's very important. Do I want to be everything for everyone? No. But I want to be everything for someone. And within that difference lies the orientation and alignment of those people to want to realize what is it that we want to do, right? If we get into an apple-to-apple comparison every single day, getting up because this person is doing that, or XYZ fund is doing this, or YZ fund is doing this, then we will not be original. We will not be doing what we set out to do as our thesis of supporting some phenomenal entrepreneurs, build category-leading businesses from the foundational stage, from whatever seed to IPO in some ways, right? And being partners to those phenomenal entrepreneurs, creating category-creating companies, and doing that at a stage where we get involved. So we have to choose our own market, and we have to choose our own perception, what we want to be, and not be bothered about what everybody else is doing in the market. Because if we start bothering about what everybody else is doing in the market, that's the surest and biggest way of being dissatisfied, and as a result creating chaos within your own partnership. What we do, however, need to do very intellectually honestly with every partnership we do is evaluate in your particular focus area of seed, series A's, which we have defined for ourselves. Are we the first port of call, and what do we need to constantly do to be the best partners for entrepreneurs in that stage? And what do we need to do for that? And how can we serve our entrepreneurs better in that stage? So that's what I'm saying. Are we going to be everything for everyone, or are we going to be everything for someone? We define that someone, and we say we are not an apple to apple with every other place. We are an orange. You want an orange? We are the best orange, right? But that's what we want to be. That's what the thing is, and everybody has to be philosophically, emotionally, and aligned towards doing that and being the best at it, and wanting to obviously create partnerships, also create a culture of intellectual honesty and dialogue and transparency and trust to be able to enable that.
Wow, awesome. That was again extremely like you said, intellectual honesty. I'm also kind of just processing that. Perfect. I had one last question before we'll just take one question of Ajit and wrap it up. My question is very short. So when are we seeing India's first $1 trillion company? Like, and what's it? Just maybe jocular or serious answer on that, thesis on that, and then we'll just take Ajit Venkatesh's question.
India's first $1 trillion company, I think. There are two ways to think about it. It will get created, and there is one already in some ways which exists and can be very large. I do feel that potentially, I mean, there are enough if it's done well, if it's done thoughtfully. The Tata Group potentially could get there. I do believe that, and the reasons are clearly because of TCS and how they do things, and if they can change. As I said, there are lots of ifs and buts, but potentially, what are they sitting on? They're sitting on great ethos, cultural substrate which is unique and inclusive, and which binds people together in a mission. And more importantly, they're a good place to want to work. And the fact is that they're in multiple industries, so there's anti-fragility broadly driven by them, and there are many sectors which can be there, and software being the biggest one. The DNA of the firm is very services oriented. So you tell me what I need to build for you. If they say that I am building this and this is what is great for you, if they invert the business that they're trying to go after, I potentially feel that is a very large company because they have the ability to kind of do that. It's very difficult DNA shift, but potentially very powerful in due course. I do also do feel that services companies that done well are very powerful and very underestimated. I do believe that in my heart. But technology oriented to drive massive scale through higher degree of AI and technology and better improvement of resources at the other end. I do feel that India still has to reclaim its position as the back office of the world in many ways with a new age way of doing things, maybe in a decentralized call center way or decentralized platform centric way. So I do feel that if the company chases its DNA, they have the value, they have the engine, they have the ability, they have the market cap to do that, they have the ability to do that in vehicles. Just phenomenally large market to be created in EV in India. I do feel that if they can get away from the legacy and go towards electrification in a good way, I do feel that that's possible. Again, all of this is going to be driven by a complete shift in DNA and aggression and all that stuff. Not easy to do. But potentially that is there, which can compound itself from a $250 billion to 4x from where it is. If India is going to grow from a $3 to $10 trillion economy, clearly, and Tata is going to create 3 to 4% of GDP, clearly it will grow by itself, by fundamental nature of it. And if manufacturing is going to grow in the country and they're a derivative play, then lots of things are going to do. And if wealth creation is going to be there, gold is not going out of anything, and Tanishq and art and all. I mean, there are multiple ways to capture value in the trust that they have. They lose trust with their customers across businesses. That's when things will go bad for them. But I do feel that that's there. The other one is not created yet. If you ask me. So I do believe that. I do believe that Reliance as a conglomerate has a lot of capabilities, but isn't as consumer oriented yet. But there are some phenomenal engines today to create that vehicle, which can be there. I do feel that it's underestimated, but Jio is a very, very, very valuable company in the country. In a very short span of time, they have been able to create a company. And I do feel that will be a $250 billion company in 4 or 5 years. I do feel even more potentially in the next 4 or 5 years. And then, of course, if they do the energy transition well, again to green hydrogen, and do that really, really well, the progress of this country, if it has to be 3x from where it is in 12 years or 14 years, I think it's just going to raise so many boats. And we don't realize that if there are newer platforms where they have proven out great deal of high degree of growth and ability to execute large national scale projects, phenomenal value will be created in some of these things. Energy requirements for India is going to be going through the roof. It is going to bound to happen. And it will be, the energy mix will change. Will that energy mix change to newer sources or newer companies or newer platforms? Who will capture that value? And if I do feel that Reliance potentially has that ability to execute large scale projects at low cost and be able to do that and provide things, and they understand that real business well to some extent, they can be the leaders in that. I think they have multiple engines for firing it. And of course, any of the richest people in the world, if you look at it, all of them are retailers. So retail, if they run it well, those are 3 very large spaces for getting Reliance to the mark as well. So I do feel that they probably potentially can be sitting at a $300 billion EV enterprise value soon. Potentially will 3x that as the country grows. We don't realize one thing as all of us Indians, because we're so jaded that we don't realize how lucky we are being in India. So we want to go 3x in 14, 15 years, and it's going to lift all boats. So.
Wow, that's a very nice systematic way of you being prescient. I think, I definitely resonate with the Tata bit. And seems like the math, once you've done it, seems relatively easier. Okay, and we're going to take one last question. We're done with this. Sorry, we're taking
No worries.
Ajit Venkatesh, thanks for the great candid conversation. Would really like to understand, Sameer, your life values and principles you hold dear and vouch for, and then we're going to call it wraps.
What are the life values you're saying?
Yeah. Life values and principles you hold dear.
okay, this is a very philosophical thing, and it's not something that I was thinking about it having coffee this morning as well. Like, okay, what is our purpose? I think everybody is given a certain amount of, I do, I'm a God-fearing person, so it's like, I do believe in God, and the only two truths, the way I put it, right? I think there is a God, and the second truth is that it's not me, right? So, so that realization is very clear, right? There is a God, it's not me, and so I'm a mere mortal, clearly, right? So, and all of us are, right, in many ways. I do think that God puts us here on earth to do our duty and to do our very best and make the most of what He's given to you, and be cognizant of what He's given to you and make the most of it. And we let all the external stimuli in our life kind of define and control and rule us without realizing that what is the hand or clean hand that he or she has given us, right? I do feel that the life principles is that you should, if you've been given a hand, good or bad, just make the most of it. And honestly, I think more and more the realization as you get wealthier in life is that money is not, honestly, it's maybe a way of keeping score, but it's not the determinant of success. It's something that is, I thought differently, but I think it's very different now. Is I don't think money is that. So I think I don't get tremendous satisfaction from making more money, but having more impact and creating better and helping entrepreneurs in their journey more. I get more satisfaction out of that. Maybe that's my calling. So you need to find your calling and do the best at it. And yes, money is important so that you can do it wholeheartedly and without any tension. So you should try and get financially secure very early in your life if you can, but then focus and find your calling and do the very best at it. And if you can find your way to that faster in your life, better it is, if you ask me. And so I think that's the journey that you need to do, and then find it and then do the very best. And we give more than you take. And if you can do that sustainably and be a good person and realize that you're not going to take anything away from you, right? So, work on your CV in the beginning, but then, after you make your money and everything, work for the eulogy in some ways. So.
Wow. That's
and sooner you can do that, move into the next phase, the better it is for you.
Awesome. I think that was a really good concluding sort of remark as well, in that sounds like a lot of gratitude and extremely obviously ruminating about philosophy, etc. And yeah, so I'll sorry we went overboard. I know
no worries at all.
Yeah, we should definitely, I would probably request you. I didn't know you were this philosophical.
No. I don't have all the answers. I'm figuring them out myself, honestly. I think about them all every day, every single day.
Yeah, but I think not enough of us, my thesis is that are vulnerable on record and also not speaking about the conundrums we have within ourselves. So I was listening to Naval Ravikant and actually making notes, etc. And then how they are so, like you said, intellectual honesty, but how you're also putting yourself out there in a way where you're seeking constantly feedback about yourself, the highlights, etc. And all of you guys have seen a lot of more latitude than us. And at lower levels, what I see is, we're continuously posturing, but with a bad attitude, right? Like you said, chasing after the wrong thing, like the shiny object syndrome, this thing, that thing, this constant fueling into the short-term thinking. I mean, look at every Instagram reel. You're actually, studies have shown you're hitting 147 times the right button, right? Meaning the next reel, next reel, next reel, next reel. So it's actually a cyclical loop, and that's really bad. Long story short, I'm just trying to say that, not enough of us are coming out there and talking at scale, basic fundamental things. I don't know why. It beats me too.
Yeah, I think you got to remain humble. I think, just one thing that I've learned to do is, and I'm surrounded by, not in the industry, you get surrounded by a lot of people who are just complete pricks, right? And so it's just amazing. Your spiritual evolution goes for a toss when you want, when you have to fit in with them. So it's okay to be an outsider in some ways. It's okay, and be yourself. And more importantly, I think one of the other bigger learnings is that, be very, very humble in life. I think, you know we are all lucky because, we got the parents that we were born where we were born, and all of that stuff. And look at great people, what they're doing in the world. I think, whenever you feel you're super smart, look at Elon Musk. Look at what he's doing.
Mm.
Look at what Jeff Bezos have done. I mean, just the pull to power has to be at a different level. So, just keep your bar very high in life, I think, and just realize that there's a long way to go, and never get full of yourself. I think,
Yeah. No, perfect. Thank you so much again. I mean, we really, really enjoyed this session. I think you can look at the comments that we're putting in terms of on the Zoom. People are really blown away by, I guess, just the refreshing honesty. Like one of my mentors, he says like this: islands of excellence and oceans of mediocrity. So I think and it's really good, when you have like that. Thank you so much.
well, you got to know oceans of mediocrity. Only then will you know what's excellent, right? So
Excellent, exactly. That's why they say, like, your seventh spouse, sorry, your seventh girlfriend is the best. You got to go through all these other. Anyway, that was just kind of on a sidebar note. But you got to go through that. Got to take the pain. Only then would you appreciate somebody valuable. Perfect. Thank you so
thanks,
much.
guys. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. I hope you found it useful and good stuff. Thanks for having me on board.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks. Take care. Bye. Bye.